feel like if I go into a car and play my podcast and someone's like,
Yeah.
"This sounds like you," I'm like, "No, it doesn't." They're
It
like,
sounds like no,
yeah,
doesn't.
yeah, just be like, "No, that actually is your voice." I'm like, "No, it's not. That's not my voice at all."
Oh my god.
Welcome to another episode of Tobin Tonight. We're here with I was gonna say Lumidee, but she told me that I'm allowed to say Lumi. So I
Oh
feel like
yeah.
we're best friends now, and we haven't even started the interview. But she understands how this all works. Uh I want to ask you to start because listen, I have a very different kind of mixture of music. I listen to boy bands, girl bands, everything in between.
Mhm.
Now, if I was caught in Spanish Harlem listening to Backstreet Boys, what would happen to me? Be honest.
Okay. Some people will say you're in the wrong neighborhood. You're on the wrong block. What are you looking for? It's like, and most likely, if we find out what else you're listening to, it may be fine. But the truth is, I defend you because
Okay.
I love NSYNC growing up. I love Backstreet Boys growing up. So as long as I was on the block, I could probably protect
Yeah.
you. You
But
know.
how much? But how safe am I? Like if you just came in and said, "Listen, he's with me," does that
Yeah.
really do much?
It would. Yes, it would. Yes, you'll be fine. And in my block, you'll be good.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
you'll be
but
fine.
okay, but at what extent would I have to put on a certain song where you're like, actually, you know what? He's no longer with me. He's gone. If I turned on Christina Aguilera and then I start singing, you'd be like, all right, you know what?
You know what?
He's yours.
I may,
Take him.
yeah, I may have to be like Tobin. We only do this when we hang out, not in front of the people in public.
Yeah, that's fair. I just be like, listen,
Yes.
all right, it's fine, fair game. And I'd be
No,
just
but it's a melting pot,
Yeah.
We like everything in Spanish Harlem. It's not just like,
Yeah.
hip hop or Latin music, we grow up listening to everything. And there's so many different walks of life that come through. So you're definitely you'll be exotic coming through Spanish Harlem,
Yeah, my only relationship with Spanish Harlem is listening to the song Maria Maria, but I think it's Carlos Santana.
Well,
So,
that is the vibe. Yes,
yeah, yeah,
That's the
yeah.
vibe. It gives you that feeling. I'm sure. I mean, the Maria. I wonder how you picture Maria. I'm sure she has a flowy dress, a flower in her hair, or something.
I picture Maria. I don't know if it's maybe because like I've heard it when I grew up, and then of course where someone kind of samples the music, I think of Rihanna. And I feel bad because the actual person who's probably in the Carlos Santana video is like, goddamn Rihanna. Everyone was thinking of me until you came on.
It's hers. That's it. It's hers.
Every like younger child was like, oh yes, when I listen to this song, I think of her. And she's like, good. And then Rihanna comes on the scene and then does a remix of it or whatever. And then it's like, now she's like, that was my thing.
Oh my gosh, she just takes it away.
I want to ask you, like, who were some of the influences you had growing up? Because you said it's like a melting pot. Now, everyone's different. I know, like, I can range from listening to Backstreet Boys one day to like Rob Thomas the next to like Avril Lavigne. So it's all over. But like,
I love Avril.
Who were some ones that you were like, you looked at them and you said, I want to give this a shot because I think I can do this?
Mary J. Blige.
Okay, good one.
Definitely Mary J. Blige. She looked like the girl on the block. She was completely relatable. But the girl on the block that you wanted to be, the girl that had all the fresh clothes and, her hair was styled cool. She's just like the cool girl,
Yeah.
So I would say Mary J was definitely key, one of them. And I mean, to be honest, it's so here, but it's like Mary J and Madonna for me.
Okay.
These are those,
I feel like yes, I just got a message from Jennifer Lopez. She is now suing me because actually it's J-Lo from the block, not Mary on the block. No, I'm like kidding.
Oh God. Well, I love J-Lo too. I love J-Lo too. Forget it. J-Lo is she's the mother of it all.
Yeah, she is the one that I remember being younger and listening to I'm Still Jenny from the Block. And as a kid, you're like, you're just, I know like listening to songs as you get older, you understand the meaning. But when I was a kid listening to that, I'm like, all right,
What's the
So
block?
what?
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the block to you?
And I'm like, what's the big deal, Jenny? What? Like, I get it. But then when you're older, you're like, oh, she's more or less saying, I'm up here now, but I'm still down to earth. I'm like, but are you really? Come on.
Exactly. Inside, she's always gonna be that girl, no matter where she goes.
Okay. That I like. See, it still took me like 30 odd years. I'm still dissecting songs.
But inside, she's still that girl. That's it. She's just waking up in the palace now,
Yeah. It's still like if you cross her, she will rip you a new one in.
Oh yeah.
And then you're just you're like, excuse me. She's like, I was always this way. I'm like, okay, she's true to her roots. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think she shows that now. You don't play with J-Lo. You see what happens when you cross J-Lo. People are very replaceable.
Yeah. I want to, it's funny because when you're mentioning like the artists that you grew up with or listened to or idolized, like I know when I was younger, I'm from Canada. So it's like when you see a Canadian act, it's mostly, and maybe there are Canadians out there that are going to cancel me now when I say this, but like for us, it's like out west is country music. Toronto, say Ontario, it's mostly all right. Whatever mixture you get.
Yes.
But I always like kind of enjoyed the whole like, all right, you see someone come out of New York or LA and it's either a rap hip hop artist or whatnot. But like, I would be like, I want to go to New York someday. And they'd be like, why? Do you want to see scenery? I'm like, no, because Jay-Z makes a whole big deal about it in like Empire State of Mind. And I like that. And then it's like, I'm going to go down there and start rapping this on the streets. Like, yeah, good luck getting shot. And I'm like, oh God.
Oh my God. No, but it wouldn't see, that's the reason, like somebody like Jay-Z does paint the picture of New York for you, know? And it's dangerous like anywhere else. You can have these moments, but then sometimes it's just chill and it's fun. And, it's like these irreplaceable moments you have in these neighborhoods you grow up in that anywhere you go in the world, you're like, wow, it's just so different. So you just kind of love that, even though there's a little danger some places, there's still that love also.
Yeah.
So
I feel like there's danger everywhere. It's just like if you grew up around it or know it, it's almost like someone can come to Newfoundland tomorrow and be like, actually, I heard there's a few shootings or a few things now. Like, all right, like, but that's its own. Like, yeah, it's not safe. And I'm like, I've been to Ottawa and there have been issues, but I've never really thought that. I've been to New York a few times and I'm like, as long as I know what I'm doing and don't look very out of place here, I think I'm okay.
But and to be honest, I feel like now today in New York, you'll be good anywhere. You really would. As long as you know how to speak up for yourself, like you'll be good anywhere. That's it. New York is just tough. But now it's definitely everybody's there. Everybody's in New York and in every neighborhood. Spanish Harlem is mixed with all races of people now. So as long as you can speak up for yourself, that's it. You can defend yourself.
I can't. That's why you have to be there. That's why you have to be there, right?
What do you mean? It's so like when you have a whole show, you can speak up for yourself. You know?
Like this whole show most times is the act will be like, actually, I got more to say, and I'll be like, go ahead.
So you speak through the podcast. That's it.
Yeah. I literally sometimes will look into the mirror or in the camera as they're speaking. I'll be like doing signals to my audience, like, help me.
Oh my God.
No. But no, I think it's interesting because obviously you live in a world with social media. Like I don't remember growing up so much with social media, but like today you go on. I'm not big on like say TikTok and stuff, but Instagram kind of brings that stuff over. Yeah. So I remember there's one that's on TikTok and the guy's like, it's like, I'm in New York. I finally arrived. And someone's like, we don't talk like that here. We don't do that here. And then she's like, say you're sorry. And he's like, all right, I'm sorry. And then she start walking away. She's like, forget about it. And then she comes right back at him. And I was just like, what are you doing?
That's hilarious though. But no, some people do talk that way. Yeah. I feel like I have a very New York, I don't know if it's an accent, but you can tell I'm from New York and it's just something that never goes away, Yeah. So, it's fine. Like some people get offended. Like we don't all talk like that. A lot of us do. It's okay. It's fine. It's where we're from. That's it. Embrace it.
It's like my favorite movie in the world is like Mr. Deeds. So it's like the Adam Sandler movie, but there's there's a scene where I think he falls over trash cans and he's like, I'm good or it's like I'm okay, and then you hear in the background from the neighborhood, nobody cares, and I'm just
Oh
still
my
like,
God.
I'm like that to me just envisions
Yes,
of New York where it's like I could be heard out on the street, or I could literally be like, I arrived in New York, and someone's like, no one cares. I'd be like,
yeah,
yeah, why would you? I'm just a random nobody. That makes sense.
exactly. I mean, yeah, that's the New York attitude. I mean, yeah, New York is definitely tough. It's a tough crowd.
I want to ask you too, because of course, like I said prior, when we have any guests on, I tell them I know a little bit about them, not
Okay.
everything. If I know everything, I'm kind of like, why am I here? It's like if you went on
Yes.
a Tinder date and you're like, all right, I know this, and this. Why am I here? I know what I'm getting set up for.
Yes.
Uh, Now I read that, of course, like your father passed away in
Yes.
'95. You were raised by your grandparents,
Yes.
four other siblings as well. Tell
Yeah.
me what it's like to have four siblings. I only have two older ones, and I'm
Okay.
already annoyed. I'm
Oh,
annoyed all the time with them.
I can imagine being the little brother. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
tough. I mean, I have two little brothers, so I get it. It's tough.
So
It's
they're
like,
annoyed with you. They're
oh
annoyed with,
yeah,
okay. No, no,
yeah,
no.
they're annoyed with me and their other two sisters. Like
Yeah.
we're always hovering over them. It's like they have three mothers, you know.
Yeah.
So, but I think it was definitely great growing up with siblings. You know, it's you didn't really need, not that you don't need friends, you know, of course you need friends, but it's like they're your first friends.
Yeah.
They're the first people you get to speak about anything, whatever experience you're having, whatever problems you're having. And I definitely got along with my siblings well. You know, we did fight, like all of them, you know. I did fight with my older sister a lot because I was jealous. I felt she was my grandmother's favorite. So she was my grandmother's favorite. My
Yeah,
grandmother's
you actually have a shirt that says that, right? She has a
yeah.
shirt that says grandmother's
I,
favorite, and
I
you're like, I
hate you,
knew it.
your grandma's favorite,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, yeah. So, but she was always good in school, and I was bad in school. So, but I think it was cool. It was definitely great growing up, and we're all really close still, you know. So I wouldn't have it any other way, you know. It's definitely yeah, and it gets you ready for like all these different personalities because nobody's the same. Even though you grow up in the same home, no one is the same. It's like, where did you come from? Who are
Oh
you?
yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, so it's like you're in the house with these strangers at some point because they get to a certain age and people just switch up. You know, things change. So you learn how to deal with people. You know, and how to learn how to bond again after it kind of
Yeah.
breaks, and how to just start over with them over and over again.
So like what's the, just because of curiosity, but like what's the age difference between just say you and your sister and then the two younger?
Well, the two younger brothers, like they just turned one is like 29, one is like 30, you know.
Okay.
And with my sisters, we're in our 30s, so it's like it's weird. It's like my youngest sister is 2 years, and then the other one is 4 years.
Okay.
My older sister, we have like a 3.5 year. She's definitely holding on to the 3.5. You know, when I tell her no, we're 4 years apart, she's like, oh no, it's only 3. She doesn't even use the half, you know. So it's like you're more closer to my age than that age. So.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, if it's all like close in age, I feel like there are definitely moments where it's like you're literally growing up together, and like when when personalities change, you kind of sense that. Where my two older my brothers are like 12 and 10 years apart between me, so it's almost like it's almost like my favorite kind of go-to funny story is when I moved up to Ottawa with my brother. I was like, oh, I guess his coworkers were so used to him just being single. And then when I show up on the scene, they're like, oh, it's like, you're his boyfriend. And I'm like,
oh my God.
I'm like, hold up a second. I'm like, I'm his brother. And they're like, oh my God, we're sorry. I'm like, no, that's fine. I'm not offended. It's just like, that's where you went with that right away.
Like
you didn't
automatically,
go like,
you just see a guy, I'm his boyfriend.
And he's like, you didn't just go like, actually, you know what? I didn't see him here last week. He's all of a sudden here this week. It has to be a relative because who moves in that quickly? It's like, no, like, all right.
Exactly.
Sure.
Like, oh my God.
Yeah. So like, that's my go-to where it's like, yeah, okay, whatever you want to do with that.
That's funny. Yeah.
But I want to ask, obviously, because you mentioned, of course, a few of your influences in music, but like, when did you decide, okay, I think it was like maybe age 12, ish
Yeah.
that you were like getting into singing and rapping, but like, how do you go about doing that? Like, I know there's people out there now. It's like, oh, you upload a TikTok, you idiot.
Oh
It's like,
yeah,
yeah, we didn't have that.
no, it was none of that. So it's really just what can I say? Like really like wishful thinking, right? Back then, you just hope somebody discovers you somehow because there was none of these tools to be seen, you know, and no way to like back in the days you'd be like, oh, let me record a demo and try to, you know, you see these movies, go to a record company and let them throw it on a pile with a whole bunch of others and hopefully you get heard, you know. That's kind of like how I grew up thinking of it. But I just grew up like I started writing, you know, poetry and it went into music. So just rapping in school and I kind of recorded my own self on a tape, you know, like those boom boxes.
Yeah,
and I played one boombox with the beat, and then the other I pressed record, and I made my own little demo like that, you know.
Okay.
So it was cool, and then I was playing it like in the neighborhood, and it's weird because I just thought like somebody's just gonna discover me, right? That's how it's gonna happen, and literally it is how it just happened, you know. Like it was a DJ from my neighborhood heard about this tape and heard that I was rapping at the time and stuff, and yeah, and he took an interest to it, and I let him hear more stuff that I wrote and everything, and that's kind of how it went. And he was a popular DJ. He did clubs and everything already. So at this time, I'm already a teenager. You know, I'm not 12, 13. At this, I was just playing around then. But once I did this little tape, yeah, and yeah, pretty much just it's weird. It's like I manifested it. I really did.
So like when you're saying like you're playing these songs just in your neighborhood, like if someone came up to you and was like, turn that trash off, were you kind of like, absolutely? Or were you kind of like,
oh no,
that's me.
We're gonna curse them out, you know, like it's gonna be a fight. You're gonna throw something at them, but you know, I was definitely, it's weird because I was super confident, but then I was very shy to play things, you know. So but I just had this group of people that was like, once they heard it, it was like, wait, they were just shocked to see me do this, you know? So I think somebody kind of spoke to the DJ and was like, do you know that Lumidee is doing this? And I knew him from the neighborhood, but you know, our age difference is so different. So we're not like hanging out, you know, he's an older guy playing in clubs already. And I'm just sitting on the stoop, you know, hanging out, you know, with my friends doing things we shouldn't be doing. So and yeah, and that's kind of how it happened for me. I think it's crazy. I just got discovered right on my own in my own neighborhood, you know.
Yeah, I feel like if I go into a car and play my podcast and someone's like, this sounds like you, I'm like, no, it doesn't.
Like, sounds like no, it
doesn't. Yeah, just be like, no, that actually is your voice. I'm like, no, it's not. That's not my voice at all.
Oh my god.
They'll be like,
that's
are you
funny.
switching? Are you switching?
Character on Shrek. You have a good voice.
It's like, are you switching up your voice to go higher on purpose? I'm like, no, I'm not. And they'll be like, stop it. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting because like the way that we live in the world today, people just get discovered off. Now I have like a bittersweet relationship with that, but it's like, you know, people go upload stuff on YouTube, TikTok, whatever, and then you start seeing a trend. And then sometimes, like for the Canadian reference, because I'm in Canada, you have like a Shawn Mendes from like Vine, and you're like, oh, okay, like, and he's actually talented. Now his other 4 friends that he started off with, I don't know where they're to, but it's like I'm kind of like, all right, you had your peak, you're gone. We now understand who the real star of this was. But then there's ones that you'll see and you're like, I don't understand how you're this far ahead. And then there's people on American Idol that actually like sing, have talent, will come in like 5th, but yet they go farther than the person who wins it. And I'm what is going on?
That's the problem. I mean, I think it's like outworking, right? Like probably outworking somebody, being a little more creative, knowing the right people, and just like luck, being able to be seen, and somehow it happens. Because necessarily doesn't ever mean the music is better.
No,
you know, it doesn't mean you're more talented. It's just sometimes just I guess that drive to make it for some people, and they're just relentless, and they'll just keep on, and sometimes it just happens, you know. But I think it is a little sad now because there's a lot of things that are taking off, and you're like really like, whoa.
Yeah, like to me, it just seems like, and again, I could be wrong because as you get older, you kind of, I guess, kind of change perspective on things. But
Yes,
like
yeah,
when I'm growing up and I'm listening to like Britney Spears, Backstreet Boys, like all these artists, and then you look at their history because there
yes,
was no social media. You're like, oh wow, like you had to
yes,
work your ass off.
exactly.
Someone had to find you in like an
Yes,
obscure location, and then you went on. So now some people argue where it's like, well, geez, they were made because they had Disney. In the case of like Timberlake, whatever. But I'm like, but hold on, someone had to
yeah,
find them first to get them to Disney. Where
yes,
today, no, like no offense, because I like Bieber and stuff, but it's like, how easy was it to upload a YouTube video? It's like, all right, but you had to have talent. I'm like, you had talent, that's good,
yeah,
but try doing that today without YouTube and stuff. Would we really
exactly.
would we have a Bieber?
Yeah,
Maybe.
it's like somebody had to physically find you, like run
Yeah.
into you, right?
Yeah.
And how do they know you're talented? Like, how does
Yeah.
this exchange happen, right? It's just
Yeah.
so weird.
Like
Now it's
today,
like,
today I can upload a video of me singing with a guitar, and someone's like, "He's not really there," but
exactly.
I think we took him in and kind of altered him. We can make it work. But like back in the day, someone would be like, "I'm not traveling to Newfoundland because you think this guy is somewhat good. He
Exactly.
has to
It
be
took a
really
lot
good."
of work and a
Yeah.
lot of energy. Yeah, it was tougher to make it. That's why I mean, I feel like you seeing these, you know, like the younger generation now out here and doing it, and I'm like, you guys are really blessed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To have all these options and tools to promote yourself. And I mean, for me, it's like I literally force myself to post on Instagram because I, you know, it's like
Oh yeah.
gotta stay in the mix. But it's like, oh, I just don't come from this. I'm just like, it's weird. It's a little struggle, but you gotta kind of move with the times, you know, and hopefully hope now it's like being found again, you know,
Yeah.
by new people, because you have your fan base, the people who kind of grew up with you and know, but as you keep going, it's like, you know, hopefully they'll find you through these things now, you know,
Yeah.
all over again.
Yeah. I want to, the one thing that I want to mention, and it's not, it depends on how you take it. It's not meant to be mean, but it's like when I was younger and
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to the radio station here in Newfoundland, it'd
Yes.
be like, you know, sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night, you got like a radio station on. And now that I come from a radio background because I went to university for this, as
Yes.
a kid, you don't think about it as much. When you get
Yeah.
older, you understand it, but like they have a loop. So they play certain songs at this time, this time, and this time. And I
Yes.
remember being younger and I was just like,
Oh,
uh-oh.
yeah.
And I was just I was like, I heard this at 3 o'clock. Do I
Yes.
need to hear it again at 6 and 9? And
It
then they were
was
just
it was constant. Yes, this is what I mean. Like the times are so different, right? Because my God, like when you, even though they do repeat things on the radio, but there's other access and other ways to hear things.
yes. Yeah.
Before it's like, this is a record that and it's constant and we're going to beat you in the head over it. Listen, it drove me crazy. It still drives me crazy. It's like,
I just remember like to,
yes.
you know, you turn on the radio and you're like, I like this radio station. Then they, like you time it to the T where it's like 3 o'clock.
Yes.
Celine Dion would come on. And then it's like 3:30, your song would come on. And then you're just like, okay, but it comes to a point where you're like, I like this station. I don't want to switch this station because I heard this
everything
song.
it's over and over, and it's almost it feels like it's like an ad or something, you know, even
like
though
now,
it's not, but it's just like brainwashy kind of, you know.
like
That's
like
why
now if
to
you
be honest, I don't listen to the radio now. Only in the car sometimes, but you know, I kind of just go to what I want to listen to. You know, I'll go on Spotify and, you know, I make a little playlist or go to some playlist that I like, listen to the artist that I want to hear. And I think that's the blessing now, right? That you could just find music, you know, and you can find these people that sometimes a lot of people don't know about, but they're like these gems. And you feel like, oh my God, nobody knows about this. Like I'm, you know, and then you slowly start seeing them blow up and you get a little upset because you feel like they belong to you. It's like,
I feel like
then you're happy because they're so damn talented. You're like, more people should know about this, you know? Because at the end of the day, even though you do music, like, yeah, I make music, but I'm still such a fan of it, you know?
Yeah. I feel like that's like the, I guess the pro of social media in a sense. Cause like sometimes I'll just scroll through Instagram and it's like an ad that some independent artist put out. And I'm like, wow, like if you didn't come across my timeline, I would not know who you are, not know. And then, but like now I like your music. And then again, like you said, there's a part of you, it's like going to your friends, like, have you ever heard this band?
Exactly.
And then they'd be like, no. And you'd be like, I have the inside scoop. And then like 3 years later, they're like wearing their t-shirts, going to their concert. And you're like, you sold out on me.
Exactly.
And it's like, but you wanted us to listen to this person. I'm like, yeah, so we could all discuss it like a niche audience.
Exactly.
Now there's like
you don't
20,000
go out there
people
and act like, don't be jumping on the bandwagon now that they're popular. Like,
I feel like there's an audience out there, like for anybody, like, like One Direction or like whoever. And they're like, we knew them before the rest of the world did. I'm like,
yes,
all right, that's cool. And they're like, how dare you like them? I'm like, you're right. How dare I like them to get them more money and play their songs? I'm like, get over it, lady.
Exactly. That's the goal. Ultimate, that you want to be heard by more people. That's it. You want to reach as many people as possible, or, I mean, nowadays, I guess at this point, it's like you want to reach the right people and the people who are going to connect.
No, I want to reach the wrong people.
People hear something, but it goes over their head, right? Yeah. You want to connect somehow musically, and you want it to do something for people somehow, make them feel something,
I feel like I've been connecting with all the wrong people. No, I'm only kidding.
Who is one of your connections that's bad?
Yeah. Oh, I can't say that out loud. Come on. They'll just be like, he told on an interview that I was a bad connection. Now he's going to get nobody. And I'd be like,
oh yeah, you can't say that out. You're right. You can't.
Not right now. Maybe in maybe sooner or later when they're like, you know what? I don't like you anyway. I'll be like, that's fair. That's cool.
You was bad for me anyway. I didn't need you.
I want to ask you, because, obviously you started the career pretty young, like you said, and then trying to get into this scene. But another thing that I like to kind of emphasize with people on their episodes, because I myself am a person with a disability, that not that it's visible, but you, and I'm going to butcher the first part of it, so I'll try the second part, but it's like I think it was like 14 or so, maybe a little bit later in life, you were diagnosed with, it was like a certain type of arthritis, but people misdiagnosed it with like
rheumatoid arthritis. Yeah.
There you go. But someone had misdiagnosed it with like lupus, but I'm like, how do you misdiagnose that?
Yeah. It has a lot of the same symptoms when it starts out. And like with lupus, people get these rashes and they get joint problems, their bones start hurting. So I was having all of the symptoms of lupus. It did seem that way, but it wasn't. Thank God it wasn't. I mean, lupus is a tough thing, and it could it's a battle. That would have been a whole nother battle for me, even though, having the rheumatoid arthritis was definitely hard, and I went through my struggles with it, and it's something that will never go away, but lupus would have been something else,
So like, how do you, because I'm just interested from obviously like the disability kind of standpoint, or because there are people out there that would be like, oh, I didn't know that, but like, how do you deal with that, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I mean, well, for me in the beginning it was hard, just like managing having to take medicine in order to function, after like being that young. Think about it, like you're 14 years old, you just want to hang out with your friends, and you don't understand, like, wow, I can't close my hands right now. Why is this happening? Like it was very weird, and then being that I was kind of at this point kind of going back and forth with my mom and my grandma. So it was weird, because once it got bad, I had to have home instruction, right? Okay. And then they kind of left me in charge of my own health. Right? My grandparents were like, they kind of didn't believe me. They thought I was trying to get out of school. Yeah. Nobody believed me, for real. So it was up to me to like pay for my medicines, right? After my dad passed away, I used to get a check, for that.
Yeah.
So that check is either you go buy sneakers, right? And clothes, because you're 14, 15 and look cool with your friends, or go buy prednisone and methotrexate and buy all these pills so you can still function. What do you think is going to
happen? Man, at 14, I think you're going to try to look fly.
And that's the shit that happened, So that's literally what happened. Like nobody really, I think, took charge when it came to my health. And I think they just couldn't believe this was happening to me that young. And so I kind of, it messed, I think I wasn't on top of it, and I didn't take it serious, and it kind of caught up with me, and So it was tough, and I did have those moments where I just had to stay home. I have moments where I couldn't walk, all these things, but it literally was the gift, and it was a curse, but it was a gift at the same time, because in me being to myself and going through this struggle, it really got me into the writing, and that's where I figured out I had the talent for writing. I was writing poetry and all my feelings and emotions, and then it came out to be songs. So had I not had to stop and chill, and it's like, you can't go hang out outside because you can't really even walk, you gotta stay in bed, so it's like, what do I do now,
Yeah.
So I was forced to like realize this talent that I had, and it took me on for the rest of my life. So I kind of wouldn't have it any other way, because I believe if I didn't get this, I would have not found music. Even though I know I always loved it, but I didn't ever think to the point of really create a record, really try to, I didn't put it in my brain that it was going to happen until it was like, this is your way out.
You're kind of forced to.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that you mentioned, because it's like very deep, because there's going to be people out there that think this is deep, but it's not actually that deep. But it's like, isn't songs really just words that kind of go together with rhyme or chorus? And someone's going to be like, oh my God, that's deep. I'm like, no, that was just me basically saying, hey, when you write something down in words, then you kind of write a song, isn't it? It's like, it's basically the same thing as poetry. It's just that you're putting kind of a music to it.
Yeah. It is, but it comes from a real emotion, right?
Oh yeah.
So that's where it all came down to, like, how do I express myself? How do I get this out? And it's with words. And then when they start sounding good together, and it was like, oh wait, this is actually pretty cool. So it was just something to look forward to,
Yeah. Someone out there right now is probably typing when they watch this episode, and they're like, how can you compare like a Jay-Z song to the Baha Men's Who Let the Dogs Out? I'm like, that's not what I meant. They'll be like, he has actual meaning in the song. I'm like, hold on, the Baha Men or Jay-Z? And they'll be like, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to make me look silly. I'm like, no, you're making yourself look silly.
Oh my God. Did you go through these debates with people?
No, this is all in my head. I practice them in case they come up where I'm like,
so you're ready.
Yeah, and then in my head, I'll be like, did this actually happen? It's like, no, you made it up, and now it's actually happening. I'm like, oh
my God.
Okay.
That's funny. So you're ready.
I'm ready for haters anytime. I'm like my own hater, because I have to be. Where it's like,
but that is the way to be, right? Like, I already know what you're gonna say, so it's not gonna offend me.
It's like some guy on like Twitter or something be like, this guy has big ears. It should be called The Elephant Show. I'd be like, actually, it was going to be called The Elephant Show, but then I found out someone actually has an elephant show, and then they'd be like,
it didn't happen.
And then they'd be like, he's making fun of himself. How do I handle this? I'm like, you go away. That's
exactly.
They come back and they're like, this guy should have his own show called The Giraffe Show. I'm like, no, you tried that last week. It didn't work. So go away.
Oh my God. Right. People will say anything.
I want to ask you, because like you mentioned earlier about Instagram and trying to keep yourself kind of active in public in that. Yeah. And I like this because I follow different acts, and sometimes you see it come up across an Instagram like algorithm. But I remember Ed Sheeran had mentioned that Instagram is a promotional tool. When he sees someone on Instagram just posting a picture for likes and shares, he's like, that is kind of depressing. He's like, because it's supposed to be promotional. So like, we don't really, like, for us, for our generation, I feel like Ed himself probably has someone that, helped him along this way too. But like, how do you find to use Twitter and Instagram? Because I only post like interview clips and say, all right, here, like sometimes if I think it's something interesting, I'll share it. But most times I'm not on Instagram going like, here's a selfie of me. This is everything I've done today. It's like, if I don't post for a week and my followers are not going up, I'm like, that's okay. I'm not here posting 24/7 where it's like, increase my followers, please.
Exactly. Yeah. That's me. Like, I'll post a picture, but this is one thing that's weird, right? I get what he's saying. Yeah, it is a promotional tool, and it is that's how you use it. But sometimes you'll post a picture of yourself, right? And this is what people are more intrigued by. And then you'll post a music video, right? That you actually did and put work on. And it's like, okay, yeah, we like it. but we like that selfie better, so it's weird. Like you could take a selfie with your phone that takes no effort, right?
Yeah.
And it's nothing. You post it and they're raving about it.
For me, it takes a lot of effort. For you, maybe not. For me, it takes like 20 filters, and then I'm like, that doesn't look like a great filter.
Wait, but it takes a little effort for us too, for the women. You got to know the angles, and definitely you hit it up with some filters, a little airbrush, because that's what the world is today, right? They're accustomed to seeing this now. So that's the struggle, I think, for me also. Like, you want to get the interaction with the people, with the music and the things you're putting out, but somehow this has been used for something else. So it's just kind of, you got to try to not overthink it, because then you feel defeated. It's like, what am I doing it all for?
I feel like for my Instagram, I don't know, maybe some people will say it and don't mean it, or they say it and try to mean it. But for me, it's like, if I wake up looking like this, like there's no makeup, no nothing, and I post that and someone sees me in public, they're like, he looks exactly like his Instagram picture. I'm like, good. That is what I want you to see. If I have a zit or like a red mark here or whatever, I'm like, I'm not hiding that, because then someone in public is going to be like, what happened to your red mark? I'm like, oh, right, I have makeup on. Sorry. And then they're like, such a phony. And I'm like,
you're such a phony, please. Listen, most people that you see in public or whatever, if they're Instagram, I'm going with like 90%, 85% of the people are not going to look the same.
No.
And blame it on Instagram, and the same people who criticize you for not looking the same are the people who will be like, oh, you could have touched that picture up. Oh, you could have did, like, they say they want real, but when you give them real, they don't want it.
Yeah. It's like, here's a picture of me. Here's a picture of me playing video games. So like, really, you could have cleaned up. And then when you clean up, someone's like, I know that's not how you play video games. Your house isn't that spotless. And I'd be like, what do you want from me?
Exactly. That's what you can't, you know what? I'm going to give you what I want to give you. And that's it. Love it, hate it, like it, whatever. But sometimes trying to please people is just not it. I think you can never win. You can never win. You either doing something to please others and then you're unhappy because it's really not you being your true self, right? Yeah. And so I'll go with the true self. I'll go with me, because ultimately I gotta go to sleep with me. I gotta wake up being me. I gotta feel good about myself. Yeah. So trying to please people is like, I've gone. Listen, I went on a whole hiatus the whole 2020. I did not post at all. Right. It was a crazy year for the world. Yeah. Right. Why am I supposed to be posting? And they like, oh, this time, people are going live. People are getting a lot of interaction. It's a great time. You should be performing live, in your house or set up somewhere and go online. I'm like, bro, I don't, that's not the feelings that I'm feeling. So it's hard. I give it to the people who could push through that, but I was trying to just push through life and pick myself up, And at the same time, I was recording music and trying to get prepared to get back out there. But it's hard for me to like pretend posting pictures like I'm happy, but you're not.
Yeah, we could have just did a whole bunch of lives in 2020 where we just ate cereal and be like, "How's your day going, Lumi?" And you'd be like, "I'm doing okay," and I'll be like, "There, end the live," and someone's like, "That was the shortest live ever." I'm like, "But we got to the point."
Exactly. This is what it was like, or you could do a live like that's really like realistic. What are you watching on Netflix? We're all stuck at home. What shows are you into? What are this? What's that? Because that's pretty much what 2020 was like, How
so like, you know what? Now that you've asked that, what shows were you watching?
What shows were you watching? Well, I love Pose. Pose got me through the pandemic. Like I watched the first season over and over. It's over now. They only have 3 seasons. It was a show on FX. And I pretty much watch everything right now. I'm waiting for Ozark to come back because they came back. I love Ozark on Netflix. What else? I'm waiting for Atlanta to come back on FX. Snowfall to come back on FX. I love shows on FX.
Yeah. I was like, there's a trend here. No.
Yes, I do. I don't know. I guess just the feeling of it is just it's like funny, but it's real. I don't know. But I mean, and I'm a Netflix, Hulu. Listen, I have all the apps, unfortunately. I'm gonna see like Listen, if I got time at home, I'm like, I binge watch everything.
Do you like one that just comes up for me? Because like obviously sometimes I'll listen to like sports radio, and then of course depending on what market it's in, they have other
Mm-hmm.
stations they want to plug. But like, have you ever heard? And I'm not trying to like, if you say no, I'm not going to be like, oh, how dare her. But like,
Okay.
I hear ads all the time for I think it's called The Heist with like I think it's like 50 Cent's project, or I
The
think
heist.
I don't know. I could be wrong on the title, but I just know like the ad keeps on playing, and every time I hear it, all I hear is 50 Cent like, it's too late to turn back now, or it's too late to be scared now.
Oh,
And I'm like,
wait, was that a
all right,
movie
50.
though? Wasn't that a movie?
It could be. I'm not like, again, this is me basically saying I hear it a few times and it's not
Yeah.
like overly interesting, but some people be like, how come you have never seen that? I'm like, it's not over. Like, I'm more of a comedy guy. So when you
Yeah.
mention, and I'm going to sound very vanilla when I say this, but like,
What?
I watched like Friends, Full
I love
House.
Friends, but
Yeah.
yes, these are the things that you put on to feel good. You
Yeah.
know, so those are the things that, yeah, they definitely bring you back to that time when things felt like a little more normal, right?
Yeah.
So
Like, I turn on like I'll even watch like because when I was younger we had like TBS, and then it's funny because as a kid you'd see if a storm showed up and the screen went blurry and it's like and you're just like
yes,
Atlanta warning, and I'm like, why are they giving me Atlanta updates? I'm in
exactly. I'm
Newfoundland, but
not in Atlanta.
I'm like, oh, it's TBS, it's kind of in the region. But like I'd watch like Family Matters, and watching say
Oh,
Full House compared to Family Matters, like I'm not trying to like make things racial here, but like Full House, it's like, oh, Michelle falls off the goddamn donkey, and it's like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah, yeah.
Michelle, you're okay. And then Family Matters, it ends with the, hey, people in Chicago, if you got guns, pass them in. I'm like, that takes a whole different turn.
Yeah,
It's a
right.
whole different world.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is crazy. But now it's like, that's what I'm saying. It's such a different time. I feel like we all kind of have the same problems. When before you could point it out to like neighborhoods or where you're at. Shit is haywire everywhere now. You know, it's like nowhere is really safe. You know, and
I'm just very surprised when I was smaller they let me watch like some of these Family Matters episodes, because it's like, you know, seeing Laura get shot because she would like, or no, seeing Laura's friends get shot because they wouldn't give some hoodlums her
wait a minute,
shoes.
that happened?
Yeah, like, well, I mean, they made an episode where this was the ending was about passing in your guns, teens, because Laura's friend wouldn't give some hoodlums, the very whitest term I could use, but it's like her shoes, and then she gets shot, and then like the family's like, I'm worried we should move, and then I think I can't remember his name, but it's like Carl the cop is like, no, this is my neighborhood, I'm here, we're staying here, and I'm like, you're not seeing that on Full House.
Exactly. Yeah, it's true.
So it's like as a kid, you're like, I like it because I like Urkel, I like Laura, but then as you get older, you're like, I appreciate that you're bringing these messages up and not just glossing over it. Like, yeah, this is based in Chicago, but nothing bad happens in Chicago. It's like,
it's true.
Like, let's touch on stuff.
Exactly. And Chicago has this wild side. It is really crazy. And it's true on the show. I never really thought about that. Now you saying it to me. Okay, now I get it. I guess
there you go. You're gonna go back and watch like Family Matters, and then I'll get a text later, and you're like,
for me, I look at Family Matters like this perfect family. Look at Urkel coming in all funny, and he loves Laura, and she's like, never gonna happen, you know. So that's crazy. See, you seen that, and that stood out to you.
Yeah. And
maybe now it was but then no. Why? Because I guess I was like living in that neighborhood too. It was in Chicago, but it was Spanish Harlem.
You'll watch those episodes now. You're like, Brian, you ruined this for me. I'll be like, exactly. I didn't mean to.
It used to be so pure, right?
Yeah. I want to ask you, because of course, you know, when you said that you got into music at a young age. Now, when I was reading articles, and you know, feel free to be like, shut the fuck up, Brian, if it's not something that you're comfortable with. But like, how do you feel, or how do you like kind of counteract? Because we talk about the negative side of media sometimes.
Yes.
But like when people come at you and they're like, oh yeah, she's the girl that sings like the Uh-Oh song and that's a one-hit wonder. Like, how did that kind of affect you and then make you still want to write music? Because I'm going to get into it about how you have other credits for songs that people probably don't realize that you do. But like, when you see those articles, because I have someone on Apple that listened to my podcast a year ago and was like, the host is shit, but the guests are great. I'm like 28 at this point, and I'm like, how do I take that? Because that's an actual now out in the universe where people
Yeah,
can see
yeah.
that. But how do you
And
take it?
I mean, at first, in the beginning, it was definitely tough, right?
Yeah.
It was hard. And I just hated the business right away. As soon as I started, I hated the business right away, right? And I realized that it was like, wow, you guys, like, people are followers, right? This was before Instagram, before
Yeah.
anything. People are followers. I realized that quickly because it's like, you say this, right? It's a popular record. And being that the first time you hear me, I have this big record, right? Okay, so she can't do that again. She's not really talented. She's not a great singer, whatever. But ultimately, for me, I was fine with people saying I'm not a good singer. It's all good. I was learning how to record at the time. I was learning all these things as the world heard me, So I was
Yeah.
kind of learning as I went. But the one hit wonder thing really stung me because I'm like, wow, I think I really do good music. You know, Everything is not like Never Leave You. If you really listen to my songs, like, shit, I got some lyrics in there. It's deep. Like, I was like, damn, y'all not giving it a chance,
Yeah.
and people are just signing you off already without even actually saying, let me listen to something else. Oh, this beat is not knocking like the other. I don't like it.
Yeah.
Like, really listen to what people have to give. I'm not going to try to outdo myself and do that again because that happened the way it did, and I think back then it really bothered me, but once I kind of got over it and I embraced it made me hate the record, right? It made me
Yeah.
hate for a long time. But once I embraced it and I was like, what? This is my fucking record. I created this, right? I put this out into the world, and I was blessed behind this record, right? People still know me for this. That means it was fucking great. Fuck that
Yeah.
you wanna like discredit it by calling it a one-hit wonder, right? But it was that great that it reached all these people in the world. I've traveled the globe for years, right?
Yeah.
Performing this record, and people know it. So I just had to like rethink it, and kind of take the power back. Like, this is great. And now when I meet people, this is 15 years later, a little more than 15 years later, it's like, wow, that's such a classic. What you gave to the music business is like, it's crazy, like what you did with this record, and people love it and how it makes people feel. And now I hear the positive more, right?
Yeah.
After the years pass by, because I guess it stood the test of time, right? It's a
Well,
record
it's
that
like
people hear.
it's like I listen to, because I know when we were talking about when you listen to the radio sometimes in your car or whatever. Like, I have a niece, when she's over, she likes listening to iHeart 2000s.
Yeah,
She's, she doesn't know these music until she listens to this, and she likes artists like Katy Perry, Mary J. Blige,
yeah,
whatever. But like, she didn't grow up in it, but she likes
yeah,
it. But then sometimes she'll even ask me, like, do these people produce music anymore? And like, there's a part of me
yes,
that's like, I hope they do, but I haven't heard
yeah,
anything since. But my one that I kind of like to this day. Now, when I was younger, I probably didn't like it because overplayed. But
yeah.
like, I think Edwin McCain had a song. I think that's his name, but it was like "I'll Be," and it's like a classic kind of like a '90s song.
Okay.
But listening to him go on stage and people are like, "How do you feel about being called a one-hit wonder?" And he's like, "You can call me whatever you want." He's like, "People love this song. It paid for a lot of things in my life." And
Yes.
he's like, "If you look back at life and you're like, oh, I hate that I made this song that made me so much money and whatever," he's like, you got to look at yourself, because he's like,
Exactly.
why are you
Yeah.
mad? Like, there are
Yes.
people out there that are writing 20 to 30 songs and
And they
can't even
don't
get
reach.
one. Yeah.
This is what it's a blessing, it's a blessing. And it does take time, right? For you to get over this feeling, because it's like you're getting attacked and they're kind of like trying to shut you down before you even begin, right? But
Yeah.
you just got to push through that shit and continue to believe in yourself. And the people who want to find you and your other music, they will. The people who want to know the other things, they'll look for it, they'll find it, and you'll find your people. But ultimately, it's like, I gave you that, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Now you can live with this forever. This is a record that when you listen to, it takes you back to a time in your life and what was happening then. And like I said, I did hate it, but in meeting people and all this after the years passed, I was like, wow, I have to respect the record.
It's
Like, how dare
sometimes,
I hate this,
yeah, like
because of what
it's,
other people try to make me feel.
it's the message that you get. Like, if someone came across this podcast and for like 10 straight weeks or whatever kept on saying, like, his episodes are blah, 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 they're trash, blah, blah, blah. And then you gave up because you heard that. And then it took you 5 years. And then people are like, I actually liked your stuff. It's like, it's what you see. So like, if you saw more positive than negative, you'd probably be like, all right, it outweighs it. But because all you're seeing is negative, you're kind of like, well, goddamn. Like nobody liked it.
Hurts,
like,
but you got to push through. And I will tell you this, do not read all the comments. That's it. Because people now, it's so senseless. Like I could go on there and write something stupid, go on with my day, and not realize this shit could affect somebody.
Yeah.
And they're sitting in that feeling that you wrote that, and this person is on somebody else's page at this moment writing some dumb shit. You know? So I learned that early on. Do not read the comments. If you want to push through and keep giving people stuff, because no matter how tough skin you have, it's gonna work on you. It's going to work on you, and it's a distraction, you know?
Yeah. I'm going to go to your Instagram now and be like, she's just the worst. And then someone's going to be like, she's like, didn't you interview her? And I'll be like, yeah, I am just the worst too.
I'm just the worst.
Yeah. They'll be like, I am so confused. What is he trying to do here? I'd be like, mind played. Like,
you see, but like, if you did that, right, then people are kind of more attractive.
People would hop on that and be like, I agree with him, and I'd be like, all right. But then if someone puts down something like, actually, I really enjoyed her latest track, blah blah blah, like, I don't care about her latest track, like, screw her. And then it's like, did you even listen to it? No, I'm not going to bother. I'm like, what? Well, what
and people will be like, oh, whack, you heard it? No. So what?
Yeah.
You know, I have a 13-year-old daughter. She'll do that about people. She'll be like, oh, that's a flop. I'm like, did you hear it? No. So how is it? What are you talking about? You're like, you know, this is the new generation.
I will progress it because I wasn't 13 at the time, but like, you know, as we grow up, because it's kind of like what we do here, and we've kind of gone through it in this podcast, but like, I remember, and if she ever listens to it, if she ever is out there listening, congrats. But it's like, I remember being in university and all I would hear on the radio is like, Taylor Swift this, Taylor Swift that. And I was like, yeah, go ahead, Taylor, go date another guy and write a song about it, because that's all you're going to do. And then I was like, all right, like, this is 20-year-old me that's just pissed off at Taylor because I'm like, do something different. Yeah. And then like now when I'm like 28, 29, I'll listen to like, I don't know, like Blank Space or Betty.
Oh my God.
And then I'll be like, you know what? I feel like if I met Taylor, I'd be like, Taylor, go ahead and kick me in the nuts. Like, why? Like, because when I was 20, I was shitting all over you. But now as I got older, I appreciate like the industry was basically saying, you do this too much, you do that too much. And you're just like, no, I'm Taylor Swift. I'll do what I want to do.
Exactly. Yeah. And you see, you said it right there. It's just the thing that people tend to follow what others are saying. So they make you feel that you're feeling that, you know?
Yeah.
And once you get older, you're making up your own mind about shit. And you're like, damn, I kind of like you. You know what I mean?
Like, I like Taylor now, but like back then I was just like, I think there's a part of me that's like, as a guy hanging out with other guys.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, she was really putting you guys on blast.
Yeah, it's like listening to Love Story. You're like, as a guy, like, Love Story, and then like, are you singing to Taylor Swift? Like, I am not in Spanish Harlem. I can sing what I want. It's like, you're not going to beat me up out here. They're like, actually, we will. I'd be like, all right, Eminem, I'm cleaning out my closet. And they'll be like, that's better. I'd be like, okay.
Oh my God, Eminem, but sheesh. I listened to a lot of Eminem, but Eminem was brutal early years. He was brutal.
Yeah,
right. You listen to that. It's like, how did he get away with saying all that shit back then?
That's another artist that I'm sure when you were younger, like, we had like Much Music Video Awards here in Canada, and I would like tape it as a 10-year-old singing the song, and now realizing, how did a principal not come to me and be like, Brian, now tell me what you mean when you sing? I'd be like, they're just words. And then they'll just be like, just let that white guy just keep going. Someone else will deal with it later.
It's crazy the things he got away with. Like, you know, he spoke about killing his daughter's mom, putting her in a trunk. Like, it was shit is wild.
That video to me when I was younger was still kind of like, all right, don't understand it, but sure. And then when you get older, you're like, whoa, damn. Like at the very end when it was like, he's reading the letter, but the guy's dead. As a kid, you're like, oh, sucks. That sucks. When you're older, like, ooh, like, whoa. Ooh, that's dark.
It's a little, yeah.
But like, again, as you get older, if you deal with like depression stuff, you're like, all right, I understand it. I wouldn't go to that extreme, but I
Exactly.
understand it.
Like it's him thinking out loud, right? The things that maybe some people would think of, but you know it's not gonna ever happen, and you don't say it out loud. Eminem didn't give a fuck. It's like, here you go.
Yeah. No, like when we were talking, of course, about the songs, like I did say we want to give you credit for other things because people out there are like, all right, well, what's the point here? But like I was actually surprised, like, you know, Let Me Love You with DJ Snake and Justin Bieber. And then even like I like Little Mix. I'm a big Little Mix fan. I like Anne Murray, but like even they Kiss My Uh-Oh, and they give you credit for that too. I was just so like, all right, so like why are we not kind of, because I know it takes a while for people to deep dive into things and be like, oh, I didn't know that that person actually was involved in that. But tell me kind of how this stuff came to be, because if I was you, I'd be like, yeah, I know you know me from this, but guess what? I've worked with this person. I've done this. Like, you know, here's some things that you didn't know about me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be honest, there's so much. I get credited on a bunch of records because for some reason, all right, Never Leave You, still blessing me, right? To this day, it's still blessing me. It's this record that people go to, and if they take a little bit of the rhythm or a little bit of the melody and add it to the record, now that's my original creation. So you have to credit me. And so now I'm a writer on this because that is something I wrote. Even if I wrote it years ago, you're taking this and you're using it. So, you know, the Kiss My Uh-Oh, it's the uh-oh, they doing it all, right? It's the melody, it's the beat, it's that feeling. Even though they adding their, you know, their little they're updating it, right? They're adding their twist to it, but ultimately it's that feeling of uh-oh, and it's giving you the melody, it's giving you the lyrics are in there too. Some of the lyrics are in there, so you have to. This is what I mean. You could write this one song, and if 20 people, right, use it and use your lyrics that you wrote and use your beat and use the melody that you wrote, you're a writer on that record also because you've contributed to it, you know?
So with like the Let Me Love You, like now it's been a while since I listened to it, but like what I'm guessing it's more like the beat that they're giving you the credit for? Okay.
The beat, they use the undertone, they use the beat, the rhythm in there. And to me, I feel like the feeling is in there a little bit in the melody, but they're never too specific. You know, they're never too specific. Like, we're gonna just, hey, you know, like, and the truth is, you know, I was signed to a major record company after this record came out and we got a deal. So it takes a whole bunch of approvals before I could approve something.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You know, so I could like something and want to approve it, but if the producer doesn't approve it and the record company doesn't approve it, it won't fly. It doesn't get approved.
To me, now that's like a whole debate in itself that could go on like an hour podcast there, but it's like, you know, I feel like bad because it's like, all right, the artist is the one that should be getting the credit, but I get the record rate, the label is more or less saying like, but we're the ones giving you the fame or the power or like, you know, whatever. But it's like, I think I seen an Adele clip where Adele was kind of like, no, it's my music. Why, like, if I want to share it or if I want someone to use it, why do you have any say in that? And I'm like, that is fair.
It's
like,
true. Yeah.
You know, like
and that's what goes back to us owning our masters. When you own your masters, you can be like, listen, I'll let whoever I want to use this, you know? And that's the problem. Because I've gotten, people have reached out to me directly. And even if I think it's great, you know, and they're inspired by the record, they use something from it. I'm telling them like, you know, it doesn't just take me, it takes a bunch of other people, you know? So that's just what it is. Like, but I just wanted to live on. Keep on using it. Keep on, you know, I'm not one of those people that everybody hits me and they're like, oh, aren't you upset about this? Or doesn't this make you mad? They're using your stuff. I'm like, no, I do not get mad. Keep using it. You know, that's what you do music. You put it out there for it to keep living beyond you, you know?
Yeah, like I think it's interesting because I know, for example, when I was younger, you know, sometimes you listen to a song and you like that song and then you find out years later that, okay, they sampled it from someone else. Like I remember in my, I'd say teen years listening to like Good Life by like Kanye and T-Pain. And then I was like, man, I really like this song. And it took me only maybe like 10 years later. And then someone's like, you mean you like MJ's Pretty Young Thing? I'm like, no, I like Good Life by Kanye. And then they were like, no, you like this. And then someone of my friends was like, listen. And then I was like, oh, I was like, all right, yeah, I guess I like that song too. And then the other person just like flips a table, like, that's my whole argument. I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
That. Originally they brought it back, and it's cool that years later you find out where it comes from, right? That it wasn't their original idea, but it comes from somewhere. So that's what I mean. That's the beauty of creating music and just putting it out into the world. You never know what will happen years later with it.
I want to ask you, because you mentioned about the 1013 album. Tell me a little bit more about that. Like, what things are you excited about that album? What things are different? Like, obviously, growing up now, like going through the whole kind of, all right, this is the first song I put out. It was good. It was successful. Like, what kind of growth can you see, say, in this album compared to?
I feel like it was a big deal because, I dropped 2 official albums, a whole bunch of mixtapes, a whole bunch of singles, but I never felt like I never got to complete a full 3rd album. Plenty of times I had the collection of music and I'm like, I'm gonna drop a 3rd album, and I never did it, So completing this was such a great feeling, and pushing myself to put it out there, because you can hold on to something and then you're like, oh, it's not ready. And you just never put it out. And I've done that so many times. So I think getting in with the producer that I worked with, Ibrahim, with this, it was great. We have the same birthday, which is 1013. This is why we named the project that, because it was kind of like our bond with each other and how we just connected musically. And it was just great. I felt like he brought a lot of things out of me that I didn't even know, like, vocally I can do and play with and not feel so judged, to try something different. Sometimes you could be in the studio and you're like, oh, if I try something and it sounds stupid or it sounds crazy, you feel embarrassed. Like, nah, it was just like this kind of free feeling, of just, let's try it. It doesn't work, we scratch it, So it definitely was a great time creating it. And I think in the music, people can hear that it's very much grown. It's me not trying to do anything but be who I am today. That's it. Just be the more adult Lumi. And it's just a vibe. It feels good. It definitely feels good. And I still listen. Like, I just listened to it yesterday. I went to visit my brothers. Right? It's funny. You're like, so how is it having siblings? So that was different because I just went and hung out with them yesterday, and that I kind of feel like I never done that in my adult life. And they put the album on, and I was like, oh, that's so cool, right? They played the album, and I still feel excited hearing it, So I just want to put these visuals out and get people to connect with it and find it, until we on to the next. But the music is there to find forever now, It's out there. So I'm just happy to be completing things, and I'm doing work with great people, because working with Ibrahim was such a great experience, and he's such a great producer. So I'm just excited for people to still find this music,
I feel like artists can get away with like putting out an album that's called like 1013, but if I put out a podcast called 1019, they're like, what's that supposed to mean? I'll be like, oh, it's my birthday. And they'll be like, what kind of idiot names a podcast after their birthday? I'd be like, I do. I'm like, a musician did it and they got away with it. It's like, yeah, because she's going to have other albums named other things. And I'm like,
other things. It's like, oh. I'm like, oh. No, but see, if you was doing a podcast with somebody else who had the same birthday, then it makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like, wow, it's weird. We have the same birthday. We met, and then it's like, spoke about that, and it just felt like an immediate connection,
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to like send like press releases out to people now. I'll be like, whoever's on your act list that has a birthday of October 9th, and then like, actually we have someone, I'd be like, great. And then they bring them on, and I'll be like, Kermit the Frog? I'll be like, God. I didn't know you were the, and they'd be like, yes, I am.
That'd actually be cool. You have them on there sipping the tea,
Yeah. I'd be like, I didn't know we share the same birthday, Kermit. I don't know if that's exciting for me or if that's deflating for me. Like,
oh my God.
That's going to do it for this episode of Tobin Tonight. Our thanks to Lumidee for coming on to the show. Remember, you can find past, present, and future episodes on TobinTonight.com, Spotify, and iTunes. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and leave a comment or two. For Tobin and myself, this is Jacob saying thank you for listening and good night.